Hey everyone, thank you for watching. Today's video I'm really excited to do. It is going to be a best and worst of eyeshadow palettes from 2019. These are going to be all 43 eyeshadow palettes that I tried in the year of 2019, and also I'm going to be ranking them from my least favorite to my top favorite. I initially was just planning to do kind of a best and worst video and picking some of my top favorites and then some of my top fails throughout the year of 2019. When I mentioned I was going to do a best and worst video, I had so many comments coming in asking to do it in the ranking style, and so I was like, I will accept your challenge, because again, 43 eyeshadow palettes, that's a lot of eyeshadow palettes to go through and try to rank from least favorite to my top favorite, but I did it for you guys. So I hope that you are excited to see this. I do have a bunch of recap videos from the year of 2019, from makeup regrets, makeup flops, best of beauty affordable, best of beauty high end. I still have my worst makeup of 2019 yet to come, but I will link all those other videos in my description box. I also really enjoy doing the ranking videos. I've ranked eyeshadow palettes, I've ranked foundations, concealers, other categories in my makeup collection, so I will link my ranking playlist down below. I started these because I really loved how Jen Loves Reviews did her monthly favorites and fails. She did them in a countdown style, and I wanted to count down something myself, so that's why I started the ranking series. So I will also link Jen's channel down below. I highly recommend that you check her out. But if you want to see how I rank these 43 palettes, why don't we go ahead and get started. Okay, and of course I did want to say with this ranking video, I'm ranking them on like my personal favorites, right? Because we have so many different palettes to get through, I did have price in consideration, and I have the price of everything listed down, but I'm really just going off of my personal fails to my personal favorite. I want to mention that's how I'm ranking them. If we have different makeup styles, our list would probably look completely different. So of course this is just fun, it's makeup, it's all personal preference, so let's take that with a grain of salt. Also, any of my new eyeshadow palettes or palettes that I did get in 2019 but I just didn't try enough aren't going to make it into the ranking video. So like for example, I have the Natasha Denona Mini Glam on my eyes. This is only the second time that I'm trying this eyeshadow palette, so that's not going to be in the ranking videos. Okay, I think that's enough. Like I said, we have 43 palettes to go through, so I'm not going to give full reviews on every single palette because we'd be here for maybe like 4 hours or something like that. Starting out at the bottom, so at number 43 I put in from Huda Beauty. This is the Emerald Obsessions eyeshadow palette. This is $27. I really love the Huda Beauty 9-pan palettes. I like that you have a mirror. I like the different color schemes on these. I purchased this one myself. I've purchased multiple of the Huda Beauty palettes, but for whatever reason, her Gemstone Collection palettes just did not call to me. There's a couple of them that I tried, and I just didn't think they were as good of quality as her kind of original Obsessions palettes were, and this Emerald Obsessions just really let me down. It's a palette that I barely reach for. I also don't wear green eyeshadow a ton. It's not a color that I reach for often, so it's another reason why I came in at the bottom, but the mattes were very chalky, very hard to blend, very hard to show up. The shimmers, I just didn't really do much for me. Overall, I was pretty disappointed. At 42, I have from Urban Decay. This is the Game of Thrones palette. Okay, I actually did mention this one in my makeup flops of 2019 if you guys want to check that out. But first and foremost, I'm not a fan of Game of Thrones. Well, it's not that I'm not a fan, I've just never seen the show, so I can't really say that for sure. So that part of the collaboration between Game of Thrones and Urban Decay just doesn't really speak to me a ton. It's also a very large palette. It's very bulky. It's very, this is just like, this is a lot going on. If you guys are newer to my channel or you don't know my preferences when it comes to makeup, I do like smaller palettes. This is a lot going on. And I didn't find the quality to be super amazing throughout. And some of the color schemes, while it might make sense for the show, again, that's kind of like a whatever to me, but when I look at this, I had a really hard time putting together looks, and this is one that's just kind of collecting dust. At 41, I have this eyeshadow quad from Charlotte Tilbury. You guys know Charlotte Tilbury, she's one of my girlfriends. We go out quite a bit, but I just really don't love the quads. I think especially the price really does come into play on this one for me, because I do look at price tags. I don't know, I try to find value in products and all of that, but for these 4 eyeshadows, it's $53, which I do think is very pricey, and all of these are a shimmer, and they're kind of just more eyeshadow toppers. It's really hard to put together a complete look with this one instead of just taking one and kind of, you know, overlaying it on top of another eyeshadow. But I also, again, this is my personal preferences, I like to go into one palette and use the whole palette to create an eye look. I don't even do single shadows a ton. Everything that I'm mentioning in here is actual eyeshadow palettes. I don't really go for my singles and all of that. I just like to go into one palette and get a look done, and it's really hard to accomplish it with this palette. The quality on these don't blow me away. I know a lot of people who really do love luxury makeup really seem to enjoy these eyeshadow quads, but for me, and as someone who, I enjoy high-end and luxury, but I'm not like to it by any means, I have a hard time finding the value in this, and that's something that I really look for in my makeup and in my purchases. This one was sent to me from Charlotte Tilbury, as was the Urban Decay Game of Thrones, but you know, just gotta be honest here. Next up, this one was also sent to me in PR, but this is from MAC Cosmetics. This is their Flamboyant eyeshadow palette. This one was $48, and like, it's one of those palettes that it's not bad or anything, but it came out after we kind of went through this really warm toned color scheme. So I can remember chatting about it in videos and doing looks with it, and people are just kind of like, yeah, okay, like we've seen these different types of looks, like nah. And the quality isn't absolutely amazing. There's a few shadows in here that I remember being kind of duds in the eyeshadow palette, which is a pretty big bummer, especially for a more expensive palette as well. So this one from MAC is just, again, like, I feel like it has a layer of dust on it because it just does not get used. Coming in at $39 is one of my makeup regrets throughout the year, a purchase that I wish I didn't make. This is from Anastasia Beverly Hills. This is the Riviera palette. This palette is fine quality. I like the Anastasia eyeshadow formula. You're gonna see more of her eyeshadows pop up throughout this video in much higher rankings, but I am not a colorful shadow type of girl. I bought this because I fell into the hype, and I've also pretty much purchased a lot of the other Anastasia palettes, starting with like the Modern Renaissance, and then Soft Glam and Norvina and the Sultry palette. And Anastasia had that time where when they released a new eyeshadow palette, it was really special and a big deal, and oh my gosh. And I feel like the Riviera was kind of the last of that. After the Riviera came out, it was just like boom, boom, boom. I mean, the 3 Norvina palettes, then the mini palettes, then Jackie Aina, then Carli Bible. There was so much going on with the Anastasia brand that certain feeling kind of lost that effect. And again, I feel like the Riviera was kind of the cutoff with that. But my biggest issue with this one, and why it ranks lower for me and why it was in a regret video, is because I do not use this palette. I have a hard time coming up with looks again with this one. Coming in at $38, I have my first Colourpop palette. You're going to see a ton of Colourpop palettes in this video. I have quite a few of them. I've bought quite a few of them. I've had several sent over to me in PR, so I have a lot to review, but this is one that just really missed the mark for me, and I was really surprised at how much I didn't really fall in love with it, and that is the Honey palette. So in 2019, Colourpop released their monochromatic palettes. These are 9-pan palettes, and these are $12 each. So you have obviously a monochromatic color scheme in here, you have a mirror with them, but with this yellow palette, I purchased this one myself, I'm pretty sure. Again, I buy a lot and get a lot from Colourpop, so sometimes I get a little bit mixed up, but I think that I purchased this one because I really liked yellow, especially at the time that it was releasing in the summertime. It was a shade that I was going for more and more. Yellow on the eyes, pop of yellow in the inner corner, which apparently is called Mermaid, the Mermaid Tears trend. I was watching Jen Loves Reviews do her Trends of 2019 live chat, and that was mentioned, and they shared Kylie Jenner's photo where she had the yellow in her inner corner, and I was like, I've totally tried to do that before. Don't think I looked anything like Kylie Jenner, but you know, bummer. Let me go cry some mermaid tears. This palette, I felt like the shadows just didn't perform like I think the shadows normally do in Colourpop palettes for the price tag and for the quality. Like I feel like the quality far surpasses the price tag on the Colourpop palettes. But this one, I was like, yeah, this is a $12 eyeshadow palette. This is. You also have the glitter in here, which I know there was a lot of kickback from people with the glitters that Colourpop kept putting into their eyeshadow palettes, with them not being eye safe and all of that. But I don't know, I felt like a lot of the matte shades ended up looking the same on the eyes. It was hard to get different looks with this palette. It was hard to get a lot of depth with some of the deeper shadows. They all just kind of ended up being the same on the eyes. And so unfortunately, this one was a miss for me from Colourpop. At $37, I have this one from Too Faced. This is the Pretty Rich eyeshadow palette. I was really excited when this palette was going to release. I was actually planning to purchase it myself, and I ended up getting it sent to me, the entire collection sent to me from Too Faced, and I was so excited about that because this palette is $49, so more of an expensive palette. Again, it's obviously this bigger palette. I mean, the packaging is really cool and everything, and obviously fits in with the release and all of that, but very big packaging, kind of hard to store and, you know, throw in a makeup bag and all of that. The mirror is very tiny, which I get it, I get the concept of it, but I wish this entire thing would have been a mirror. Otherwise it's just, I don't know, it's kind of silly. But the palette was a little bit lackluster to me. The glitters weren't the easiest to work with. They weren't the hardest to work with, but they weren't the easiest glitters to work with. And overall, once I really got into it and started playing with it, I felt like I wasn't able to do much with the palette. And each time that I went into it, even though we have mattes, shimmers, and glitters, I felt like I was kind of like, huh? I just really don't use it as much anymore. It's been kind of neglected in my eyeshadow collection. So that one is from Too Faced. Next up, I have this palette from Urban Decay. This is one of their mini Born to Run palettes. This is the Shortcut palette. This was $25, so you got 8 different shades in here. So Urban Decay came out with their Born to Run. I always feel like I'm gonna confuse the Born to Run from Urban Decay and Born This Way from Too Faced. I try to make sure I don't get them confused, but they came out with the larger Born to Run palette. A lot of people really enjoyed that palette. So then they came out with these minis, kind of breaking them down again into different color themes with each palette, which I do appreciate. But even though this is a smaller palette and I like the color scheme, like these colors do call to me. This was sent to me from Urban Decay, but I really took a liking to this particular color scheme. Again, it was just one of those palettes I was like, I don't know, I just don't reach for it a lot. The quality didn't absolutely blow me away, and it was just kind of ended up being kind of like a meh eyeshadow palette. So that is from Urban Decay. Number 35, I have another one of my girlfriends, Pat McGrath. This one is her Bronze Temptation eyeshadow palette, the Mothership Sublime Bronze Temptation eyeshadow palette. Okay, and this one is $65, and you have these 6 different shades inside. This palette was gifted to me, which I was very excited about. This was the first time I was trying Pat McGrath eyeshadow palettes, and I do think the quality on the shadows is really nice. Again, because I'm not a luxury type of girl, I feel like 6 shadows for $65 is a lot of money, and it's hard for me to wrap my mind around that. But again, I felt like the quality in here was very, very nice. The packaging, I don't actually love this. There's like a string and you like put it around here, and then you have to like open this thing, and then it's kind of hard to use the mirror. It just, this did not get any bonus points for me. I just think it's kind of a lot and it's not really my style. So again, this is a palette that I just tend to not reach in for a lot, even though I do think the quality is nice in here. The shimmers are really beautiful, but for the price tag, for the shadows inside, for the packaging and all of that, that's why it's ranking a little bit lower. And then next up I have from NARS, this is the Ignited eyeshadow palette. This one is $59. It's another reason why that I just feel like that is so pricey for an eyeshadow palette, and you get these 12 different shades inside. I like the quality of this one. Again, not an absolute favorite. It's not something that I end up reaching for a ton, but the mattes in here I thought were just fine. The shimmers I think definitely kind of like stole the show out of this eyeshadow palette, and they're pretty, but again, just kind of a neglected eyeshadow palette. Again, for the price tag, I just think that one is kind of high, and even though I think that it's a nice eyeshadow palette, NARS also does release so many different eyeshadow palettes and so many different collections throughout the year. Again, it can kind of make different releases not as special, and kind of not, as a consumer, it wouldn't make me want to run out and buy every single collection, especially for the higher price tag, because it just doesn't seem worth it to me. So that is the NARS Ignited. And at number 33, and this kind of rounds out the bottom selection of my eyeshadow palette rankings, if you will, but this is the Natasha Denona Coral palette. This is the only palette that I do not have to show in this video, so I'll have it in a photo on the screen here. This was a 5-pan palette, and it was $48. So again, very expensive. 5 shadows for $48. That's very pricey. Unfortunately, I purchased this one myself from Sephora. 2 of the shadows came broken. That obviously did not help. That's why that palette also ended up in a regrets video, but I like Natasha Denona mini eyeshadows. I just purchased the mini Glam. You're gonna see another mini palette coming up later on in the video. I like those, and I feel like $25 for the 5 shades, I can handle that. But something about the $48 for the 5, and just not seeing why it is worth that price tag. that's what made it come at the bottom for me. That's what made me put it in a regrets video. I liked it. I was able to do my best to do a couple different looks with it to try to get a feeling of, did I just want to return it for a new palette that wasn't broken, or did I want to, you know, get my money back for it? And I ended up just choosing to get my money back for it because I just kind of got stuck in that whole, I don't see the value of this eyeshadow palette. That is the bottom selection of my eyeshadow palettes for 2019, and let's move into the middle category. Coming in at number 32, I have another one from Colourpop. This is one of their Disney designer collaborations, and this is the Midnight Masquerade palette. So I really do love the packaging on this one. I think that it's beautiful. This one was $22. I believe it is not available anymore since it was limited edition, but I loved the photo of all the princesses up here. Then you have the mixture of matte shimmers, and then again there are some of the pressed glitters in this palette. Again, it's one of those palettes that I don't mind, but I just don't feel a strong pull towards it. It's a little bit bigger. I don't use all of the shades in here. I kind of stay away from some of the glitters as well. So it was just one of those that I thought was like decent, but I was more drawn honestly to the packaging than I was to the actual inside of the palette. Next up, I have one from Dose of Colors. This is the Pretty Cool eyeshadow palette. This is a 5-pan palette for $32, which is still pretty expensive. It's not the 5 for $48, but it is still pricey. I will say that different from the Natasha Denona, you do also have a mirror on it, and you do also get a double-ended brush with the Dose of Colors palette, so that can help add to the value for sure. I do like the Dose of Colors eyeshadow palette formula. I've hit pan in my Marvelous Mauves eyeshadow palette. I've purchased a lot of them myself. This one was gifted to me, but with this one, I like it, and I love neutrals. I do, and I love just like a good brown smoky eye. I like to use even just like one brown shade all over the lid and call it a day and all of that. But for some reason, this one just didn't get me as excited as I think I thought I was going to be. I still like it. I still like the quality. I still think the shadows are easy to blend. I like the brush. I like all of that. It's a nice and sleek palette. It's easy to throw in like an on-the-go makeup bag. I just didn't love it as much as I thought that I was going to. Alrighty, next up I have from Karity. This is the Picante eyeshadow palette. This is a bigger palette. This is $29. So this one, hold please. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 times 3 is 21. I have the 21 shades in here for the $29, and this is coming in at number 30. I like the quality in here. I think that it's nice. Again, the color scheme, you know, we've kind of seen this done a little bit here and there, but I was actually really pleasantly surprised at the quality of this one. Again, this one just comes down to personal preference. It's a larger palette. You have, I mean, with the golds and then the reds and the purples and all of that, there's just kind of a lot going on in here, but really don't have a whole lot of negatives to say about the palette. At number 29, I have this palette here from Sydney Grace. This is the Autumn's Rain eyeshadow palette. This is $52. Sydney Grace is an indie brand. They were actually mentioned in my 9 brands I want to try in 2019, and they did send this over to me in PR, so I was able to try it out. I do think that this is a really nice eyeshadow palette. I like the mirror on here. Again, the color scheme is one that I like, but I'm not completely obsessed with it. It is pretty pricey, which I do understand indie brands oftentimes being a little bit on the pricier side. I totally understand what it means to run a small business and how expensive that can be. I did also want to point that out. I thought the mattes were pretty. I thought the shimmers were pretty. Again, I like the colors in here. It's just not something that I absolutely lost my mind over, but I still thought it was a nice palette. At number 28, I have this one from Juvia's Place. This is the Nomad palette. This palette is $15, and you get 9 shades. These are quite large pans, eyeshadow pans in here. I tried this one fairly recently. I did get this sent over from Juvia's Place, but I have purchased their eyeshadow palettes before. I've tried out their formulas before. It is a formula that I like. I don't think it's a tippy top eyeshadow formula of mine, but I do like them. This color scheme, I do enjoy it. Sometimes with Juvia's Place eyeshadow palettes, I can get a little confused looking at them because sometimes I'm not someone who's very visual right here. So sometimes when palettes are kind of all over the place like this, it takes me a second to kind of reorganize things in my mind so I can try to get a better picture with it. But I mean, it is a really pretty fall palette. Again, the Juvia's Place formula is one that I like. I just don't absolutely love. Next up, I have this one from Huda Beauty. This is the Nude eyeshadow palette. Again, I've been a big fan of the Obsessions palettes, those, you know, kind of original palettes. I had this one gifted to me, and I was really excited to try it out because it is a $65 eyeshadow palette, so that is pretty pricey. We have, what, 1, 2, 3, 6, 6 times 3. So in this one, we have the 18 different shades, and I really like the color scheme in here. I thought this would be one that I would just absolutely love. I was kind of going back and forth on purchasing it myself for a while, but because it is so expensive and some of her larger palettes didn't get a ton of love when they released, I was a little bit unsure about it. Again, I like this palette. This is actually in my current Shop My Stash bag that I had picked out for December of 2019, and I've used it a handful of times over the past month here because it is in that bag for me, which means I'm trying to use it. And I just feel like even because of putting it into my Shop My Stash, I'm kind of struggling and I don't feel as excited as I would think that I would be to grab this palette. I like it. The quality I think is fine. It's nothing that's blowing my mind. The mattes are fine. The shimmers are fine. There's 2 glitters in here, which I really don't use very often. You have like the more concealer shade in here, which I have covered with tape, and I don't know, who knows if that one is even dried out. But I just don't feel the inspiration to grab this one. I feel like a lot of my looks tend to look the same, which I mean, it's a fairly monochromatic palette as well. I have another one from Colourpop. This is the Good as Gold eyeshadow palette. This one is $18. This is my newest palette from Colourpop. Yes, definitely, yes. The newest one I have from Colourpop. I did purchase this myself recently as well. I kind of went back and forth on buying this one because the color scheme doesn't drive me crazy. Also, I don't wear golds a ton on my eyes, and this, I mean, you know, it's obviously called the Good as Gold palette, so that is a theme of it. And they're having a sale. I watched some swatch videos and demo videos, and I ended up talking myself into it. And the color scheme, again, for me, I think is fine. I don't think this is one I'm going to be reaching for a ton. A lot of the shadows work better applying with your fingers, and if you don't know this about me, I hate putting my fingers in makeup. I don't know what it is. I don't like to apply products with my hands. Even swatching, I don't love swatching makeup. I don't like putting my fingers in makeup. It's a really weird thing that I didn't really know about myself until starting a YouTube channel, but truly a lot of the shadows work better with your fingers, so I think that's something that's just going to kind of deter me down the road from reaching for this one over another one of my palettes that I really enjoy, because I just don't really love it. I just think that it's an okay one. Again, I wanted to point out that this is my newer palette to me. I have tried it 3 times now, so kind of a little bit difficult. I went back and forth on if I should rank it, but I feel like I have a pretty good idea, just knowing the color scheme isn't absolutely for me, which I knew before I bought it, and that I realized that you have to apply so many with your fingers. I'm just kind of like, you know? Coming in at number 25, I have this one from Persona Cosmetics. This is the Identity 2 eyeshadow palette. This is $42, and you have 12 different shades inside. I swear, my mask skills are not always great, so I always get so worried when I just glance and I'm like, that's 12. Because you just never know what I'm going to come up with, honestly. I did review this one fairly recently on my channel. I do really like Persona Cosmetics. I've liked a lot of releases for them. The eyeshadow formula I think is nice. I think the mattes are nice. I think the shimmers are really nice. You really don't need a damp brush with all of these different shimmers in here, and I think that they perform really nicely. Biggest thing for me on this one is the color scheme isn't totally me. There's a lot of times that I would look at this palette when I was in my review period with it and just be like, I don't really know what I want to do today. And sometimes I would grab a different palette instead of using this one because I just had more ideas from other palettes. So again, you know, that's why I wanted to say that I'm ranking this pretty much based on how often I'm reaching for a palette. And even though I like the quality in here, and I think that I've done some really cool looks with the shadows, you can layer the shimmers as well, which I think is really nice. It's just not one that I reach for a ton. At number 24, I have this one from Sigma Beauty. This was in collaboration with Beauty Bird. This is the Dream palette. Okay, this would take me a really long time to count all of these shades, but you have approximately a bajillion different eyeshadows in here, and then you also have 2 face highlights on either side, and then you do get a brush in here. I don't think this palette is available anymore at the Sigma website, but I really liked when Sigma started putting their double-ended brushes in these palettes because Sigma brushes are just bomb. I've been purchasing them myself for so many years, and I love that you get actual Sigma quality brushes in them instead of just like kind of a cheapy brush that I tend to throw away with eyeshadow palettes because I have a larger brush collection. And so like I said, you have 18 different eyeshadows in here, and then the 2 highlighters. I liked the addition of the highlighters, but I didn't think it was absolutely necessary. And again, kind of an all-over color scheme, which is great for some people, and you want to go into one palette and have a bunch of different options. I think that that's awesome, but coming down to my personal preferences, I would like something a little bit smaller. I did like quite a few of the shimmers. Some of the mattes in here weren't my absolute favorites. Again, I think it's a bonus that you get the brush in there too. At number 23, I have this one from Marc Jacobs. This is the Stiletto eyeshadow palette. This is $49.50 and you get 7 shades inside, also a mirror. This one was gifted to me as well, and I was really excited to try out this formula, and it is a really nice formula. This is an eyeshadow palette that I'm a little bit surprised that I don't reach for it more. I actually have my collection divided up. If you guys saw, I moved in April and I did a couple vlogs and I shared how I decided to set up my makeup collection. It's a little bit different, but I am actually in the process of giving my offices a makeover and getting new furniture for them, getting actual desks and like storage and drawers for my makeup. It's like the most exciting thing. I'm super happy about it. I'm planning to do some vlogs when I rearrange everything as well, so stay tuned for that. But I have my most reached for makeup on my bookshelf, and I have the products that I still like or I'm still keeping around but I don't reach for a ton in my closet in my office. And this one is on my bookshelf, but for some reason I just don't reach for it a lot. I think the quality is really nice. I like the mattes. I feel like I've done some really cool looks in here. The shimmers are beautiful. This one is more of a glittery shade. But I don't know, I just tend not to reach for it very often, but I don't really have a whole lot of negatives to say about it. So that is my one from Marc Jacobs. Next up I have, I mean, I was going to say, like, is this the most expensive eyeshadow palette in my collection? But I don't even really know why I'm asking that question. This is from Natasha Denona. This is the gold palette. This is one of her $129 eyeshadow palettes. I had this gifted to me from a subscriber, which was so incredibly kind because... whoa, I mean, quite honestly, but I was really excited to try out this formula. Again, I'm someone who, I look at the price tags, I think about the value between the products, and that's just kind of how I live my life at this moment, and I can't really apologize for that. But I was really grateful to get this so I could try it out, so I could see what I think. And again, it's kind of coming like right in the middle of the pack here, because I think the pack, not the packed, pack. Go pack, go. Woo! I do think the formula is nice on these. The matte shadows in particular in this palette, I truly think are so good. And I can remember the first time putting my brush into a matte shadow. I'm just gonna go ahead and assume it was this one was the first one I tried because that looks like a me shade, and thinking, oh my gosh, I get it. I get why people love these palettes so much. But the shimmers, honestly, I think are good. But if they would have been on that same quality level that I think the mattes are, that's when I would have think that I would be so much more amped about this eyeshadow palette, so much more able to be like, yes, you guys should go out and spend $129. I think that's what would put this palette higher in my ranking video, but I think the shimmers just aren't as good as I maybe expected them to be, especially after trying the mattes in here. Again, I think that it's a really nice eyeshadow palette. The color scheme, once again, just like with the Colourpop Good as Gold palette, color scheme isn't 1000% me because it is a little bit more gold, and then you have some like kind of like these blue greens over here. Maybe if this was like more on like the mauve side, I might reach for it even more and again rank it even higher. In at 21, this is another one from Pat McGrath. This is the Eye Ecstasy Sublime eyeshadow palette. This one is $28 and I did purchase this one myself. So definitely packaging on this one is like nothing to write home about. There's really like nothing special about it. I know it drives a lot of people crazy with all the blank space in here. So it's $28 for the 5 shadows, but one of the reasons that I decided to purchase this one was because I did try that Bronze Temptation and I really liked the shimmers out of there, and these are all shimmers, and I thought for the $28 for 5 shades I can still get really nice quality shimmer shadows, and that way if I do want to use this as a companion palette to another palette, maybe an all matte palette or that sort of thing, that way I can use them together. So that's a big reason why I purchased this one, and I do have to say that the shimmers in here are really phenomenal. This first one especially I just think is such a beautiful shimmer. It kind of blows my mind. So I have done all shimmer looks with this palette, especially like halo eyes, spotlight eyes, and yeah, I don't regret buying this one. It's pricey for the 28 at 5, and especially for kind of like the meh packaging and everything, but I do like the palette. And then I also have from here, this is coming in at number 20. This is from Colourpop. This is the Orange You Glad palette. This is a $12 palette. So again, their monochromatic 9-pan palette with the orange shades in here. I actually do really like orange with green eyes. I think that's a very complementary color, so I liked this one. Again, you do have a glitter in here, but I liked this one especially more than the yellow because I felt like the matte oranges in here were different. You were getting a different variety of shades. I especially liked that we had not like neon shades, but you know, a little bit more on the neon side. I could appreciate that. I liked the shimmers in here too, so I thought that this was a fun palette, the Orange Glad from Colourpop. Number 19, I have this trio here from Kaja Beauty. This is the Glowing Guava Trio. This is $21 for this stack, and you have the 3 different shades inside. I really like the tones in here. I purchased this myself from Sephora, and I figured I could use all of these. And because I do a lot of on-the-go makeup, because we did move to a very small town, a lot of times I'm driving to larger towns to do shopping, meet with friends, find more than 3 restaurants, you know, that sort of thing. So a lot of times I do my makeup in the car, and I just bring an on-the-go makeup bag with me, and I felt like this could be really beneficial to that. And I do still agree. Again, this one is very new to me, so I wanted to point out that it was newer. Maybe if I've had it for a longer period of time and really was able to see how often I would reach for it in my on-the-go makeup bag, I might rank it a little bit higher, but it is new to me. But I think that it's nice quality. There's 2 mattes in here, and I think that they're really easy to use. And then the shimmer in here also. Again, with 3 shades, I'm only going to be doing so many different looks with this one. But, you know, sometimes you have that day where you just want to do something a little bit simple. That's actually what I was doing today. So, you know, that can be a good thing. 3 shadows for $21 I do think is, you know, pretty pricey as well. But so far, I've been enjoying that one. And then next up, I have another one from Colourpop. This is the Main Squeeze palette. Again, another 9-pan monochromatic palette for $12. This one is the red tones. I feel like I did some pretty cool looks with this one, and I ranked it over the orange because I felt like I was able to do more of a variety. Like, you have kind of like a pinky red, you have a deeper one. All of the shimmers I felt like were different in this palette too, which I also appreciated. I don't know, some of these like hot fire reds in here, I feel like I did some pretty cool looks with this palette. Again, I'm a fan of the Colourpop eyeshadow formula, and I like the ones in here. So that is the Main Squeeze. And then next up, I have from Too Faced. This is the Hot Buttered Rum eyeshadow palette. This is $25. This came out around holiday time 2019, and I did purchase this one myself. Again, just kind of one of those pocket palettes, really easy for an on-the-go look. And I liked the shades inside. This is a very me color scheme, and I feel like the quality is really nice. Again, a little bit of a newer palette for me, but I have done quite a few looks with it, and I feel like the shimmers especially were really beautiful. The mattes were easy to blend. Even these darker tones down here, I feel like this was a pretty nice one, and it also smells nice too, which I appreciate. That's gonna do it for kind of my middle of the ground eyeshadow palettes, and let's move over to some of my top favorites. Coming in at number 16, this is from Colourpop. This is the California Love palette. This is an $18 palette, and you have the 12 different shades in here. This is a palette that I think it's nice quality. You have a couple of the glitters in here as well, and I like the color scheme. I was a little bit confused. I put this in a video that was about releases that confused me, because Colourpop was saying this was their summer collection release, and I actually felt like it kind of had a bit more fall vibes to it. I don't know if this is one that I want to say I got like just a little bit bored with it after its release. Again, I don't know if the timing was a factor in that too, but I like the quality. I like the color scheme in there. I think that it's a nice one from Colourpop. Coming in at number 15, I have this one from Sigma Beauty. This is the Enchanted palette. This is $49. Once again, you did get a double-ended brush in here too, which I think I just popped it into my brush collection, and then also a mirror. This was $49, and you have 14 different shades in this one. Again, I like this palette. I think that Sigma has definitely improved their eyeshadow palette quality from when I first started trying out their palettes to this is their latest release. This one definitely got a lot of love that I saw in the online beauty community, and I do think that it's really nice. I didn't want to rank it too high though, because especially some of these darker tones and the duochromes, not what I reach for a ton, but especially like this side of the palette was totally me, and I went into those quite a bit. I did do some cool looks. I did some green ones with this palette too, but I really did like it. I thought the quality was really nice on that one. Next up, I have one from Lawless Beauty. This is the Little One eyeshadow palette. This one is $25. I actually also have the larger palette from Lawless Beauty, which I ended up ranking higher, which surprised me when I was thinking about actually doing this ranking style too. It surprised me that I wouldn't rank the smaller one at the, you know, least the lower cost higher, but I still like this one. Again, it's $25, and you have the 8 shades. I really like kind of the pocket palettes, and this is one that I do enjoy, but I feel like there's just a little something missing from this one that I feel like I get a better variety obviously in the bigger one, but there's just a few tones in there that I like a little bit more. Again, I still really like it. I still wanted to rank it high because I enjoy the formula in here. I think that it's really nice for someone like me who, you know, I'm not like the world's most masterest blender of the universe, and I like that this formula is just a little bit more blendable. It's easier to build these up than to have to like really blend and have them be super pigmented, kind of like the Anastasia formulas. And again, quick and easy looks that you can get from the Lawless Little One palette. Next up I have from Colourpop, this is their Flutter By palette. This came out in their Butterfly collection. So another 18 pan palette, and this one, no, another $18 palette, and this is a 12 pan palette. Whew, I've been filming for a while, okay? This is actually a palette that surprised me a bit. I got this one sent to me from Colourpop, and when I first looked at it, I wasn't super hyped about it, but all of the times that I've tried it, I've ended up liking it so much more than I thought I was going to. There's more variety in here than I thought that I was going to get. And I really do love mauve tones. It's one of my favorite colors to wear. It's one that I reach for so often, and I just ended up liking this one so much more than I thought that I was going to. One that I really do recommend. I feel like this one went out of stock really quickly. I'm not sure if it's available right now, but beautiful packaging and all of that. If it does come back and these are your tones, I would recommend this one from Colourpop. At number 12, I have this one from Anastasia. This is the Carli Bible eyeshadow palette. Again, this one does come with a brush as well. $45, and again, you have 14 shades in this one. I'm a big fan of Carli Bible. I actually had a friend gift me this palette as well, which I was so excited for because I was planning to purchase this one myself because I'm just a big fan. Again, I like the Anastasia palettes and I really enjoy Carli Bible. I've bought a lot of her collections and collaborations that she's done, and I really do enjoy this palette. Again, big fan of the Anastasia formula. This color scheme is definitely a lot more me than, you know, the Riviera and everything, and I just feel like I've done some cool looks with this one. Like, I've done some of like my, you know, standard looks, but then I've also done some really cool ones with some of these darker shades, especially like Jode and OA. I think those are really neat shadows to this eyeshadow palette, and I have really been enjoying this one. And then I have from Colourpop, this is the Smoke Show palette. So this is a 9-pan palette for $12. I keep wanting to mix those up. Oh my goodness, you have the mirror in here. I did purchase this one myself. This one was such a different purchase for me. I went back and forth. I wasn't sure I was going to grab it. In the end, I decided to do it. I think there was a sale on Colourpop because I look at this and I am intimidated. I am so scared when I open this palette. My fingers start sweating and I don't know what to do, and I'm dropping my makeup brushes and it's the whole thing. But every time I've used this palette, I have really enjoyed the looks that I've done. I just posted a video recently on my Instagram doing a glam New Year's Eve tutorial with this palette, and I just think that it's really cool. This is actually the palette that I wore when I went to the American Influencer Awards. Something about this palette just works, and I enjoy the looks that I do. Is this an everyday palette for me? No, but I still enjoy this palette. I still enjoy the looks that I've gotten out of it, and this is something when I'm like, you know what, I want to do something a little bit different for me. Boom, Smoke Show. We are getting closer. We have 10 palettes left. All right, coming in at number 10 from Dominique Cosmetics. This is the Berries and Cream eyeshadow palette. This is $44, and you have 12 different shades inside. That sounds pretty good. Don't judge me from this point out. It's been a while since I've sat down to film. I really like the Dominique Cosmetics eyeshadow palette formula. I do highly recommend it. I've tried quite a few of her eyeshadow palettes, and I really do enjoy them. I did purchase this one myself as well, and I really like it. Again, I feel like mattes are easy to blend out. The shimmers are really beautiful, and you can do a fun variety of different looks, all while it's still being somewhat of a, not monochromatic palette, but it's a very cohesive palette, but then you still have like the little pops that you can do something different. I think that's really beautiful. So that is number 10. At number 9, I have the one from Lawless. This is the One eyeshadow palette. Now this is $65, so that is very pricey. So again, I really put the One and the Little One next to each other, but something about the One, I just love the looks that I've done with this one. With like the mauve and the purple down here, some more of like the oranges and the coppers, and this pop of yellow, which I just think is cool. Something about this one, I just really enjoy this palette. Again, I'm a big fan of the formula. Love how easy it is to blend. I really enjoyed the big mirror on it. Just like sleek packaging. I'm a big fan of this one. This was gifted to me as well, but big fan of that one. At number 8, I have another one from Colourpop. This is the It's My Pleasure. This is another 9-pan palette for $12. This is more of your purple palette. I think this one is really beautiful. I've done some really fun looks with this one. Some of the shimmers in here are so cool. I love that there's the shade Chicklet, which I think is awesome. I run my blog Chicklet Plus. Chicklet is one of my favorite book genres. I write Chicklet series, so I just think that it's a fun name and it means something to me, but big fan of the color scheme in here. And I've already told you that I am a fan of the Colourpop formula, so that is It's My Pleasure. At number 7, I have this one here from Tati Beauty. So this is the Textured Neutrals of Volume 1 eyeshadow palette. So Tati Westbrook, or Glam Life Guru, hello, launched her beauty brand in 2019, and this was her first release. This is such a beautiful eyeshadow palette. I love how unique it is and having the different rows and then the different finishes on everything. Mattes all the way up to the glitters, and I think that this is really beautiful. Again, this is a newer palette to my collection, and I think this is one that if maybe I've had it for a little bit longer, I could see myself even ranking it higher. But because I've only done, I think, 4 different looks now with this palette, it's, you know, I just kind of have to be fair to the other palettes that I've had for longer and I've used more and I've reached for it and all of that. This is one for my New Year's Eve look, and I got a ton of compliments on it, and I used the glitter out of it, and I thought that it was absolutely beautiful. Mattes are easy to blend. The glitters are some of the easiest glitters in a palette that I have ever used, and I mean like ever. So impressed with the formula on these. I think Tati did an amazing job. She did send me this palette, which I'm extremely grateful for, but the quality on this one I think is fantastic, and this one is $48. And next up I have from Urban Decay, this is the Naked Honey palette. So these are $44 for the Naked palettes from Urban Decay. You do also get a double-ended brush. We have the 12 different shades in here, and this is one that I didn't think I was going to love. I kind of, like, I didn't like roast it in my weekly Will I Buy It series talking over new makeup, but I was like, looking at the promo photos, I thought this was one palette with the exact same shade just 12 times over, and I was like, I don't get it. Not Colourpop, sorry, Urban Decay sent this to me in PR, and I was like, whoa, this is way different than I thought it was going to be. You actually have a really nice variety of shades in here while also being in the same sort of color family, and I was really impressed with this one. I loved every single different look that I've done with this palette, and I was a fan of it. So coming in at number 6 is the Urban Decay Naked Honey, which means we are now moving on to top 5. Woo! It's all come down to this, my top 5 palettes of 2019. Oh my goodness, if you guys are still here and you've made it this far, make sure that you give this video a thumbs up. That would be amazing. Are you subscribed to my channel yet? You should be. Double check if you are. YouTube has an unsubscribe bug going on right now. So if you've made it this far, do those 2 things, and I would really appreciate that because this has been quite the task. Woo! Okay, so number 5. Technically, this palette did release at the end of 2018, but I did not try it. Like, my first video with it was December 29th of 2018, so I'm just putting it into the 2019 category because that's when I really started using it. This is the Anastasia Beverly Hills Sultry palette. This is a palette that I thought that I would enjoy. Again, I like Anastasia Beverly Hills. I tend to like her eyeshadow palettes. This one is the 45 for the 14 shades. You have the mirror in it. It comes with the double-ended brush. But because this one is more cool toned, and I have normally been just more leaning on the warm tone side, I was like, yeah, you know, I bet I'm gonna like it. I bet it'll be pretty, and I can pull it out for like special occasions or fun or different looks. I use this palette so often. This actually became a very grabbed for travel palette for me in 2019, which definitely surprised me. I took this with me on a handful of my trips, and I just ended up liking it so much. Again, I like the quality in here, but something about these shades just speak to me. I mean, from Pearl and Rose Quartz and Cinder, just beautiful. The mattes are beautiful. I'm such a fan of this palette, and I am so happy that I grabbed it. I also love the sparkly packaging. Coming in at number 4 is from Colourpop. This is the Going Coconuts palette. So again, $12 for the 9 shades. This is a palette that I was not going to get from Colourpop, and I have another palette coming up from them in my top 5, and the same thing happened. Obviously, we know that Colourpop is a brand that releases so much. A lot of times they have weekly collections that come out and bigger collections. And there are times, because I do purchase a lot from Colourpop because they are one of my favorite brands, there is times that I just get overwhelmed, and then a new collection comes out and I'm like, you know, I just made a big purchase and I just don't want to grab it. And then I almost miss out on some of my favorite products. That is what happened with the Colourpop Coconuts. This collection came out, and I was like, ah, it's pretty, but I probably don't need it. You know, I think I just made a purchase. Like, it's a neutral palette, and, you know, a little bit cool toned. Probably not a big deal if I skip over it. Quickly, so quickly, became a favorite of mine. Became one that I would reach for with my travels, especially over holiday time and all of that. I was reaching for this one so much. You can do such a quick and easy look with this one. You can build it up and do something on a little bit more on the glam side. There's so many possibilities with this one. You don't have the glitters in here. You just have really beautiful shimmers and mattes. You don't have to use your fingers with anything, which is fantastic. And oh my gosh, I almost missed out on this palette. And I like it so much. At number 3, this is an eyeshadow palette that I feel like continues to get roasted on the internet, and I'm like, I'm putting it in my top 3. What up? This is from Urban Decay, and this is the Naked Reloaded palette. Oh yes, I love this eyeshadow palette. Once again, one that I reach for a ton. All 5 of these that I'm talking about go in my travel bags or my on-the-go makeup bags quite a bit. This is one that I've taken to a lot of events. I just think that it's beautiful. It's a color scheme that is totally me. I think some of these shades in here just amp up an eye look in the coolest way, especially Reputation and Burn right in the middle. Those are so cool. I don't know what it is about this palette, but this palette, if you can see, it is dirty, and I'm very light-handed, but because I've used this one so much, it looks used and it looks dirty because I've used it and I love it. So at number 3, the Urban Decay Naked Reloaded. I'm such a fan of that one. That one is $44. At number 2, this is like so exciting. If I could do a drum roll with my lips, I would be doing it for you, but I can't. At number 2 is from Colourpop. This is the Sweet Talk palette. So obviously this is the other palette that I was talking about, was saying there was so many releases at the time that even in my Will I Buy It video, I barely even touched on it. I can remember, I barely even touched on it. I was like, there's too much coming out right now from Colourpop. I'm too overwhelmed. I'm trying to use the other palettes I already bought, not getting anything from this collection. Colourpop sent this over to me, and once again, from the first time I tried it, I was like, what was I thinking? I almost missed over this palette completely, and I would have been heartbroken because I love this one. This one does have some glitters in it, which I'm not a huge fan of, and it actually does have a Super Shock, which I can apply with the brush, but it does look nice with the fingers. But even still, those aside, the color scheme in here, that it's neutral, but then you have these pops of pinks and then the golds, and I'm such a fan of this palette. Again, it's $18, and I just enjoy it. You can probably see that this one is dirty too. I take it with me so often. I think that it's absolutely beautiful. If you guys have been watching my channel for a while now, you probably already know what number 1 is, especially since we've just gone through all of these different palettes. But definitely tippy top favorite, number 1 palette, the Natasha Denona Mini Nude. We all knew it was coming. $25 for the 5 shades, but this is my number 1 palette right now. This is my number 1 traveled with. And to get this palette for this video, I had to go into my on-the-go makeup bag and pull this palette out because we were gone over the New Year's holiday. I'm filming this on January 2nd. We were gone over the holiday, and this is the palette that I brought with me. I use this one so much. I think that it's absolutely beautiful. This shade in here, I can't even put my finger in anymore to swatch it when I was trying to do comparisons with the Mini Glam because it has such a dip in it. I just enjoy this palette. I love that it's small. I love that it's compact. I know it's only 5 shades for $25, but it's such a me palette. It's so just neutral and simple, and it just is not gonna let me down, okay? It's just not gonna let me down, and it just has to be my number 1 favorite. Even when I put out all 43 eyeshadow palettes, I knew this guy was gonna be number 1. So that is it. We have done it. Ranking of 43 eyeshadow palettes that I tried in 2019 or the very end of 2018. I hope that you guys enjoyed this video. I hope that you find it helpful. Thank you to everyone who suggested you not only wanted to see best and worst palettes, but you also wanted all of them ranked. It made this a much lengthier video than I was planning for it to be, and just a little bit more complicated than I originally had in mind. But I had a lot of fun with it. I hope that you guys did too. Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. As always, don't forget to subscribe and give this video a thumbs up, and I will see you guys in my next one. Bye.